even the new boats, they're just not wired to handle this power. So we're going to pull wire. You play it case by case, but you're not going to use the factory wiring. It's not going to happen.
What is going on, guys? We're down here at Hydraulic Gear with my buddy Rich. And Rich has always been a go-to guy when it comes to consulting on any boat that I've gotten, especially with Battle Bowls, dude. And he kind of knows the ins and outs. How many boats do you think you've rigged? Thousands?
Yeah.
A lot of boats,
A lot.
dude. So what we want to talk about today is kind of trends that Rich is seeing as well as that I'm seeing when it comes to rigging out these boats. Because as you know, you can't just buy a bass boat anymore. It doesn't work like that. There's all these tweaks, all these changes, all these upgrades that you need to do to really, like, to be totally frank, stay competitive. So let's talk right off the bat, kind of the mainstay. It's forward facing.
Forward facing.
What are you seeing when guys are bringing their boats in? What are you seeing them ask for? How are you kind of taking their ask and saying, hey, you know, I know you're asking for this live scope, but you need this, this, and this, and this too. What do these rigging kind of outlooks or rigging plans look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have fundamentals, stuff that's going to go along with it. So cable management, you got to make sure you're going to have power. Got to make sure they're going to have power in the boat. You got a customer that comes in, and a lot of people are re-rigging their boats now instead of buying new. So they'll bring an older boat in, they're gonna have old batteries in it, and they wanna buy active target, live scope, whatever it may be, forward-facing sonar. And they're not thinking about everything that goes along with it as far as power goes.
Because it's all integrated.
Yeah, they think they're just gonna throw a graph on the bow and go out and start live scope and fish.
So on that, there's different ways, because there's different ways of doing active target and live scope.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, say, specifically live scope, are you recommending lithiums? You kind of mentioned to me earlier, like there's a little hack that you're doing when it comes to the power management, because the Garmin can actually handle how many volts?
It can handle 32 volts, somewhere in there. So, I mean, we take it case by case. You know, if you got someone that comes in, typically people are being price conscious. So we'll look at what they have going on their boat, and do they have to go lithium, or else they're not going to get the performance of the graphs?
Right.
Or can we say, all right, look, we'll use a step down, we'll wire it off their trolling motor side, not touch the batteries, keep their lead acid, AGM, whatever it may be. And in doing that, you can keep labor costs down, you can provide proper power to their forward-facing sonar all day, and it's a lot less footwork, and it accomplishes the same situation.
Because you're getting that, so a lot of this forward-facing stuff, and just electronics in general, it's about even voltage, right? Like keeping that consistent voltage, giving it as much power as it can so the processor works as strong as. Are you running harnesses then? Like, do you recommend harnesses or direct wiring? What do you tell the guys who are just getting into it?
I prefer direct wiring, so if we got a guy that comes in, he's going to break the bank, he wants the best of everything, we're going to rewire the boat.
Okay.
Even if we use a drop down, we're not using the factory wiring. There's just a lot less wiring to go along with that. So again, we take it step by step, depending on budget. There's a fix for everything, but ideally, especially with even the new boats, they're just not wired to handle this power. So we're going to pull wire. You play it case by case, but you're not going to use the factory wiring. It's not going to happen.
And I guess that's a good point, because we were talking about this earlier, is you're going to treat a boat from 2014, 2015 different than you're going to treat a 2023, because they're rigged out differently to handle, like, the wiring. I know, like in the Rangers, pulling like 17 wires through some of that tubing, it's impossible.
Yeah.
Dude. So you have to kind of have workarounds, and each case is going to be different. Yeah. So on that note, like if you're looking at, I've noticed there's a lot of older guys getting into this, and I'm one of those guys at this point, but you know, I can't see super good, like super close or like super far away sometimes. So are you seeing some of the older guys who want to dabble in this technology, like raising their graphs or doing things so they can see it better? Because that's what it's all about.
So again, you know, you get your graph out of the box, and then there's a big price difference between a 10-inch and a 12-inch and a 16.
100%.
So again, if we're going in, you know, watching, see how far we could take our money, and the guy's going to go with a 9 or a 10-inch graph, especially with some of the inexpensive bundles that we have nowadays, where they'll lump a forward-facing sonar with a 9-inch graph. You've got your beat-down mounts.
Yep.
There's a couple brands out there, some are better than others, but you can elevate the graph off the deck, and you can even extend it further. So you don't necessarily have to have a 12-inch down at the bow, on the bow, because you're looking down at it. There's distance there. We're half blind nowadays. You can bring the graph to you, and in some situations, instead of buying a 12 or a 16, you can get away with a 10 because you're bringing it up towards your face.
And so that's sort of the divergent trend. So this year, I actually put a 16 on my front, And I'm super happy about it, because the one thing too that I think a lot of guys don't talk about is you can bring it closer to you and get it, I guess, so it's clearer. But then if you do go up to a 16, you're actually getting, at least on my Lowrance, you're getting higher resolution.
Sure.
So I get a 1080p out of a 16 versus a 720p out of a 12. And to be totally honest, like, I can notice, like, on the active target too,
Right.
like, it's a clearer picture and it's bigger, so I don't have to bring it up, because my ass, dude, I hit things with weights and I break screens.
Yeah, and then let's be honest, it makes you feel better because you have a 16 and everyone thinks you're cooler.
I try, dude. I barely make it. But so the other thing too is, let's talk tournament guys. So we're seeing a lot of kind of like back and forth with restrictions on screens for tournaments and stuff. Do you see guys running double transducers a lot? That's what I got on my boat. Do you see them using a 360 more again? Are you getting asked for that? What kind of trends are you seeing in there?
I think guys are getting away from the multiple graphs at the console, especially if they have limitations. They'll go to more of a single graph at the console, and then they'll go and they'll use all the inches on the bow, so they'll have multiple graphs on the bow.
Right.
In my opinion, the ideal setup is a Mega 360 and forward-facing sonar.
Just a single transducer for forward. Okay.
Yeah, but then, you know, I'll flip the script and I'll ask you from your standpoint, since we know what you're using, how do you think that benefits you? I know you talked about, like, you know, you've got the perspective mode and then you've got your forward and down, and you can use the perspective as a search, kind of like a 360.
Yep.
And then your forward and down, you can really kind of pinpoint, you know, what you're looking at.
What I personally found is I've been running multiple transducers, like either perspective or scout, whatever,
Sure.
and then a forward for a couple of years now. It's very cool in the sense is I get a real-time, almost like a structure scan, but the one thing that I'm definitely sacrificing is the technology isn't there for the perspective and the scout to offer the clarity that you get on like the Humminbird 360. I'll be the first to admit, right? It's clean, but it's not real-time, right? And so that clarity is what you sacrifice, but then I gain that real-time ability to kind of scan around and really know my environment without waiting for the, what do you call it, the radar spin,
Yeah, sure.
you know what I'm saying? And the way, I think a lot of it has to do with how you fish. So for me, I'm using my scout mode, or when I had the perspective with the Garmin, to look and identify a target or a situation, and then I'm using that forward transducer to actually specify and define, like, hey, this is something real, this is a fish, this is a stump, this is a piece of structure. So it's almost like a cross-reference point. You go from like a broad perspective to a very like fine brush. So that's how I'm using it. I think a lot of the guys, though, with the restrictions, they're using the 360 like that now, too.
Yeah, and because too, you have 3 graphs on the bow, so you're running your perspective, you're running, or your scout mode, you're running your forward and down, and then your third for mapping.
Mapping in 2D.
Right.
I'm still old school. I love my 2D still, dude.
So, you know, if we have to go backwards with, because of some of the limitations, and we have to start removing graphs to meet the criteria. I mean, 360,
It's a
that's
powerful
one,
tool,
and then forward-facing sonar. You know, I think it's badass.